Hey, how's it going? Sorry about last week. I deleted one of the videos I was recording for Blade Runner. That's why I didn't upload last Monday. But this week you're getting two for the price of one. Blade Runner and The Last Jedi. Hey there, I'm Steve and welcome to Jamson Entertainment. Today we're talking about Blade Runner, the first movie and the second movie, 2049, and the shorts that happen in between. Each movie starts out with text giving the small backstory of the universe that this is built around. In the first movie, humanity's research into cloning has been perfected to the point where they can make them super intelligent, even stronger, and control how long they live so that they don't have an uprising, which is kind of what the movie revolves around just a little bit. And these clones are called Replicant. They're basically used as machines. That's why they have such a short lifespan. But because they are just clones of humans, they think and feel and they want more from life. And so this small group of replicants, led by Roy Batty, are out to find their creator, Dr. Tyrell, who they believe can extend their life because they only live for 5 years. Harrison Ford's character is Rick Deckard, who is a Blade Runner. His sole job is to go out and retire replicants. That's the soft way of putting it. That he kills replicants because replicants are illegal on Earth. They're used for otherworldly means, expanding the human reach. Because you can tell from the environment, this is set in, I'm pretty sure, Los Angeles. You can see that pollution has gone out of control. There's a permanent dusk around the city. Part of Deckard's investigation leads him to talk to Dr. Tyrell and figure out why they're doing this, the 5 replicants. And Tyrell's not quite sure. He has an idea, but he also has his own motives for Deckard. There's a test, much like the Turing test that we have, but it's a little more advanced. The test involves a machine that has a piece that looks into the subject's eye, and you ask the subject questions. And based on that response, you're supposed to determine whether they are a replicant or a human. And Tyrell wants to see just how good Deckard is at detecting which is which. So he brings in his creation, Rachel. But Deckard doesn't know that until he does the test. And you're led to believe that he's there for a few hours questioning her. And Deckard figures it out that she is a replicant, but he also figures she doesn't know she's a replicant. And Tyrell doesn't want her to know. It's his special project, but you don't really find out exactly how special she is until 2049. Because this plot is around extinguishing the replicants that came from off-world. Now, Roy Batty and his small gang, they go around looking for answers of how to extend their life, or how to get to Tyrell. They first go to this guy that he just makes eyes. And then they hear about a person named Sebastian, who is one of the engineers on the cloning process. And they think, okay, this guy can most certainly extend our lives. So they split up. One of the characters named Pris, who basically is Harley Quinn. I know this because Paul Dini, the creator of Harley Quinn for the Batman animated series, flat out says Pris was inspiration for Harley Quinn. And if you take a good look at Pris, yeah, you can see it. She goes and finds Sebastian and sees what he knows. And Roy goes to Tyrell. But when he goes to see Tyrell, he goes over genetic things that they can possibly do to their bodies to extend their life. And Tyrell more or less says it won't work because you're already made. We can do it with new replicants. We can't do it with replicants that already exist. You're doomed. With this knowledge, Roy kills Tyrell. And his mission now is to simply kill Deckard because Deckard's out to kill him. It's just simple survival now. When it comes down to Deckard versus Roy is basically saying, like, why did I get cheated? Why can't I have more? He has experiences that no one else has because he was built for these things. And all those experiences would be lost once he dies. And he feels that those experiences should be known. And this is the one part where, what does it mean to be human? yes, he's a clone, but he is human. And in some ways, he's more than human because he's smarter and he's stronger and he has a very strong will to live. You could argue that Deckard has become the machine because he is simply doing his job. He's not really questioning why he's doing it or why he should kill these replicants. He's just, I have a job, I'm going to do it. Machines are the exact same way. The only replicant that Deckard has any kind of feelings for is Rachel, because he sees her more than just a replicant. And they do become romantically involved, which kind of segues into 2049. But to kind of continue, the other question is, when do humans lose their humanity, or when do they gain humanity? And Roy kind of answers that in that he spares Deckard's life. He's clearly superior to Deckard, and Deckard is helpless to defend himself. And instead of killing Deckard, Roy spares his life. And in the process, he dies because his life cycle has ended. There are 3 shorts between Blade Runner and 2049. The first short is an anime that's done by the same director who did Cowboy Bebop, my favorite anime, and it's pretty awesome. It's like the year after Blade Runner, and there's these couple of replicants that are on Earth. One's a worker and one's a pleasure replicant. They too feel that they are worth more value and they want more out of life, but they realize they won't necessarily get that in their lifetime. So what they do is they blow up like a central headquarters in LA that will also create a blackout and destroy all digital records. And that sets up for in 2049 why there's so little records left, and that the Tyrell Corporation is the only one that really had records. The next short takes place a year before 2049, or is it 2 years? It's Jared Leto's character, Neander Wallace, who bought out the Tyrell Corporation after Tyrell was killed, because Tyrell had no real heirs. He's not really an innovator or an engineer per se. He just has money and can mass produce the replicants so that they can colonize the rest of space. And he's been able to take it to 9 worlds. But before he does all of that, this short is about him coming to this small council of people that are in control, and he pitches them his argument for why replicants should come back. But his whole character is around the fact that he's looking for perfection. And in doing so, he loses more and more of his own humanity. He doesn't have eyes, he has fake eyes. And he has implants that help him see probably different spectrums of light. Maybe it helps him analyze things. And one of the things he's trying to perfect is Tyrell's greatest trick, as he calls it. In this movie, you find out that Rachel had a child with Deckard. And the whole movie revolves around that mystery. Like, how did this happen? Who is this child? And Ryan Gosling's character, Kay, who is a replicant and is a Blade Runner. It's kind of weird, isn't it? A replicant who's made to be a Blade Runner, and he does it unquestionably, like a machine. They even have this thing, like each mission he comes back from, they do a baseline test and they ask him a series of questions to see if he's emoting or not. And if he's on his baseline, he's fine. And he answers to, I think she's a captain, who is a human. And he goes out and retires in a replicant played by Dave Bautista, who points out that Gosling's generation of replicants are jaded and don't know what it means to witness a miracle, which is the birth of a child from a replicant. Kay's boss wants this information swept under the rug and out of the public eye because it would start a lot of chaos. And Wallace wants to find this child and get her DNA so he can create replicants that can give birth, because that is, in his eyes, is the way that humans reach perfection and can spread to more worlds. In this movie, though, you get to know Kay a little more than you did Deckard in Blade Runner. You get to see Kay come home and interact with his virtual girlfriend, Joy. So you get the sense that he's not completely a machine. He does want to have some fulfillment in his life. He does want some kind of companionship. The only person he really can connect with is another machine. Joy is a holographic girlfriend, and he has such a connection to her. He buys a mobile projector. And when you first are introduced to Joy, you can definitely see that she's a program that's simply responding to Kay in in a manner which she thinks he wants to hear. But then later on, you see that she becomes a little more human herself, because she does care for Kay and she does want to help him as much as she can. In Kay's investigation, he goes to Wallace's building, his corporation, and he talks to Love, a replicant that is Wallace's assistant. And Kay, probably because he's a replicant himself, can pick up who is and who isn't. Even though nowadays replicants are very easy to tell apart from humans if they simply look up and to the left, because they have a model number under their left eye. And she helps him find whatever files they have on this Rachel, because no one's not this time, they're not sure if she was a replicant or not. Love is kind of probing why Kay is looking into the past, especially this deep, but he doesn't give any information. But Love also acts like, well, okay, you're not going to tell me, you're not going to tell me. Where in reality, she wants to know because it'll please her boss. Now, the question 2049 asks is the same question that Blade Runner asked. It's simply asking it for a different reason. What does it mean to be human, and when do humans lose or gain their humanity? How it's asking that differently is the fact that a replicant had a child. Does that mean that replicants are human? I think in 2049, it might be a little more cut and dry. When do we gain our humanity, or when we lose our humanity, or when are replicants just machines? Love is a great example of a human being who is just a machine. The only real emotion she has is to please her boss, and she'll do anything to do exactly that. Kay, on the other hand, starts out machine-like and slowly begins to question what is all the purpose of this. And one thing I forgot to mention near the beginning of this, both movies also ask, what is memory? Because in Blade Runner, you see this fellow police officer or Blade Runner that's helping Deckard in his investigation, but he's constantly making these little origamis and leaving them when he's around Deckard. And one of the ones he leaves is a unicorn. And later in Blade Runner, you see Deckard fall asleep and he has a dream of a unicorn. Blade Runner and 2049 both point out that replicants have childhood memories. Rachel has memories of a child when she got first stung by a wasp, I think. 2049 actually shows a person whose job it is to make memories for replicants. So basically all they're doing is what an entire movie revolves around, is Inception. The whole point of the unicorn is to make you think, is Deckard a replicant or is he human? One thing I disagree with Ridley Scott, the director of Blade Runner, is that in interviews within the last 5 or 10 years or so, he flat out says Deckard is a replicant. And I disagree with that. I like the ambiguity there. I like thinking for myself, is he a replicant or is he not a replicant? But one of the things asking what is memory, Kay has this memory of a child that was in a pretty rough orphanage that had this small wooden horse as a toy, and the other children want to play with it, but he won't let them. And so he runs away deeper into the orphanage is in a huge junkyard, essentially. And he hides it in one of the old furnaces. It's no longer working, so the little toy horse doesn't get burnt up. But it turns out that that is not his memory, because he's looking up DNA of the child, and there's 2 records, a male and a female. Once he finds that there's 2 records of the same child, but one male and one female, that's when he starts questioning. And at one point, he convinces himself that he is the child that was born. But you find out the person I mentioned that makes the memories is the child. I mean, you don't really find that out until later. He goes to her because she's noted as being the best person of making memories for Replicant. And she said, I can tell the difference between a fake memory and a real memory. You look into this machine and just think of the memory you want me to see and I'll see it. And she watches a memory. This is before you know who she is. And she starts to cry. And we know now why she's crying, because it's her memory. She was the child in the orphanage that hid the toy horse. She is Deckard and Rachel's daughter. But before Kay realizes that, she just tells him this memory is real. And Kay Ryan Gosling has a very subtle acting style in this movie. You may even think that he's not acting, but he is. It's subtle, you have to watch. And this is the first time that he really has an outburst of emotion, because he basically has to kill himself, or he has to cover up the fact that he is the baby replicant. So I'm going to stop there with the storyline of both movies. I don't want to spoil too much, and I've definitely been droning on. I'd like to go into the little bits I know about the behind the scenes of Blade Runner. For instance, the original movie has like 3 or 4 different versions to it. The theatrical, I think it's 3. The definitive, and then the final cut, which is also known as the director's cut. The theatrical cut, and I think this is one of the reasons why I didn't do too well in the theaters, has narration throughout the movie. And another thing I learned about it is reportedly Harrison Ford hated the idea of narration because the movie spoke for itself. And so he would phone in when he had to do the narration part. Ridley, I'm just going to say one more time before we begin. I really don't think this narration is necessary. Oh, no, it's great, it'll work out great. All right, but I'm pretty sure that the audience can figure out what's going on without me telling them. Here we go. My name is Deckard. Rick Deckard. And I am a Blade Runner. The cut I saw first was the definitive cut, and it was good, but I couldn't understand why people liked it so much, because at the time I was probably in my late teens, early 20s, and it was Harrison Ford in a sci-fi movie. I was expecting action, and this is a very thought-provocative movie. And there is action, and it's good action, but it's character-driven and thought-provoking, and I just didn't know how to process that when I was younger. But I watched it another time, and it was like, better. And it just keeps on getting better and better. And then when I learned 2049 was coming out, I watched it again. I was like, things just kind of seemed to fall into place then. And I really love both Blade Runner movies. They're easily within my top 5 favorite movies. And then 2049 oddly doesn't do that well in the theaters. I have no idea why. You would think that since Blade Runner has grown an audience over time, that 2049 was just being set up to succeed. And Denis Villeneuve, sorry if I mispronounced your last name, put a lot of care into this sequel. I didn't know it was directed by someone else until I did a little more research into the film, because you would think that Ridley Scott directed the second one, but no, he only directed the first one. But that's how good this one is. It's in the exact same vein as the original. And things that I thought were CGI were miniatures. I was surprised of how much practical effects were used in this film. And it's really a shame that it didn't get as much attention, because it does set itself up for a third film. I mean, you can leave it ambiguous if you want, but I would like to see a third Blade Runner film. I don't know, because this one didn't get so much traction, but hey, maybe we're gonna have to wait another 30 years for another Blade Runner film. And if that's what it takes, I'm all for it, because if waiting 30 years got us a film that's, in my opinion, better than the original, that means that the third film should be the best film, from my point of view. And to go off topic just a little bit, but kind of stay in topic, Ridley Scott has hinted that Blade Runner and Alien are part of the same universe. The biggest differences between them, other than the story, is Blade Runner uses clones, and Alien and Aliens, even though Ridley Scott didn't direct that one, that was James Cameron, use androids that are basically human themselves. And you could say because replicants didn't work out, they just simply switched to androids, which they can control far easier, even though that's a whole nother topic. But you can see where Wallace fails, and then I think it's Watani who picks up the mantle. But he was like, nah, I can make androids that are just as good, if not better, and he does. You could see that happen in the middle between 2049 and Prometheus. Those are my thoughts on the Blade Runner movies. I highly recommend you buy both of them on Blu-ray. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any collector's edition out there for either of them. If there came a collector's pack with a bunch of extras, I would definitely buy that. But unfortunately, Blu-ray is the only option that we have available to us. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on Blade Runner and 2049. And what are your thoughts on the possible tie-in to Alien. Would you like to see that coalesce at some point, or would you like to keep them separate franchises? I'm up for either or. If you like what you saw, like it. If you think other people like it, share it. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.